Welcome back to the Blue North. Today I'd like to talk a little bit about the double standard and the different way that the media is portraying the Biden administration from that of the Trump administration. When Trump was in power, when he was the president of the United States, the media had a frenzy on everything the man did. There was a 93% negative coverage. They made money, like CNN's president said, we make money on Trump. So putting out negative story after negative story about Trump fed the masses that didn't vote that way. And now there are, right? There are a lot of people that don't vote Republican that are very liberal, and that's fine. That you need there's only two parties in the United States, so they're obviously going to have a strong following uh, throughout the entire country. So those that followed the Democrat side would tune in to CNN and MSNBC, and they made their money that way. So, of course, they had a slant to the news that would make Trump look bad. And then you have Fox News that panders to the right leaning, right wing Republican side, and they slant everything in favor of Trump. So, the problem is that CNN and MSNBC really stretch those stories on Trump just to make everything a negative. Even right now, Trump's no longer in power. Trump is, sitting in Mar-a-Lago in Florida. Now, there's a global pandemic on, and you're supposed to be sitting still. You're supposed to be doing your part to not spread this. And all CNN can do is take pictures of Trump's plane and say, his pride and joy used to be busy, now sits idle. Look at Trump the story is just in order to try to make money. But you're missing all of the real stories because you're still trying to make money off of the Trump name. You're still trying to make people think like Trump is terrible. You're trying to depict him as a loser, I guess, of some sort, because he's doing his part, staying in Florida, just not traveling all over. The guy couldn't win anyways, because if he was traveling, then you would make a scene about him traveling during a pandemic. So still trying to hang on to the Trump name to make some money. So there's a whole section, if you go on their website, Trump dominates one whole chunk because the Trump name makes money. So you wonder why Trump, and he got slack for this too during his presidency, where he doesn't own the buildings that his name's on. Oh, how terrible. They try to make it into a whole thing where, he's just paying for his name to be on. Yeah, because his name generates money. His name is generating CNN money, and he's not part of CNN. So they're using his name to make money, yet not too long ago, they were bitching about him making money off his name. It's just such a double standard in the media right now. I wish we could just get back and find a couple of real journalists. There's none out there. There's none. So it's really sad. But back to the coverage of the Biden administration. Let's get into that. Joe Biden going up the stairs to Air Force One, and I know people are saying it's not a big deal, so what? He slipped on the stairs a couple of times and fell. It's not a big deal. It's only a big deal because the media made such a frenzy about Trump holding the railing going up the stairs to Air Force One. He was just holding the railing, and they made him into this weak president. Oh, look at this. He needs to, so what? He held the railing, but that was a have to be negative story about Trump. So him holding the railing showcased the fact that he was weak and frail, and it was so ridiculous. But here's the guy that they love falling right on his face on the stairs after tripping twice. So he never stopped to just get his bearings. He would have looked way better after the first slip, just to stop, get his bearings, look over his shoulder, like shake his head like, oh yeah, it's going to be one of those kinds of days, and then move on. But he didn't. He showcased a weakness that he was going to continue to, he was going to try, like, oh, okay, I got my bearings. No, I didn't. Boom. Now and then he ends up right down because he won't stop and take a few seconds to just collect himself. So now, what's going on? You don't think that that's a big deal, but other world leaders like Vladimir Putin, they capitalize on that. They know that he's not taking questions from reporters. Why is he not taking questions? That should be a huge thing right now. Why is he afraid to sit and answer questions? Because he doesn't have answers. It's not that he's so cognitively unsound that he can't, there's a little bit of that, but the big picture is he doesn't have answers. They're going to hit him with questions that he doesn't have the answers for, or he just will not say. Why is there a border crisis? He doesn't admit there's a border crisis. CNN doesn't admit there's a border crisis. But there are reporters out there from Fox News and whatever else. They're going to ask him, why is there a border crisis? And he's just not going to be able to answer that question. He's going to look terrible. And then Harris won't take questions right now either, because guess what? She doesn't have answers. It's not that she's cognitively unsound. It's that they don't have answers for their policies. That's what it all comes down to. It has nothing to do with Joe Biden being a little bit on the downward slope cognitively. It's all to do with they have no answers for their policies. They have no answer for defund the police. We're seeing that is not becoming very effective. We see that the open border down on the southern border, that isn't playing out to be such a great thing that they said it was going to be. MSNBC just had one of their hosts try and take Dan Crenshaw to task, and they have a graph. This MSNBC had a graph showing 9 months of increase to the border. Well, when people think that Joe Biden's going to be taking over, they're going to be getting there, and it's like a concert. When you go to a concert, you go early because you want to be the first one in, so you get the best row. You want to be right at the front so you can, you can catch the beach ball, or you can just be as close as possible, or whatever, right? All the things that go on in a concert. So you go early so you can get in there. Well, people were getting to the border because they didn't want the cutoff. They didn't want to wait and dawdle on it because they want to be right up front when they open the gates, and then everybody goes through, and then eventually they're going to say, wait a minute, yeah, this was a shitty idea. We got to stop. And then you're at that cutoff. No, you got to get there early so that you're in place to be put in. That's what everybody wants to do. That's why everybody was rushing to the border. But when Trump was president, there were only like 800 people in detention. 800. Do you know what there is now in March? March of 2021, there's over 10,000. That's ridiculous that the number went up that much. And these cages that Trump was using, and that the Democrats and MSNBC and all of the news outlets were saying was such a horrible thing. It's just these cages. You got to use the worst terminology possible. Cages. These kids are in cages. Well, guess who's using the cages, and guess who built the cages? The guy that's using them right now, Joe Biden, is the guy that built them with Barack Obama, and they're being used. They're being used, and they were built because their open border policy sucks. And that's why we have these people in detention. You talk about humanitarian, and you talk about rights of people and how to treat people and how to put policies forward that are going to ensure that human beings are treated the best. Quit giving them false hope that they're going to get to the U.S. border and it's going to be like Walmart. Welcome to Walmart. Walk in. It's not like that. So the Democrats opening the border and saying, come, and then having so many people there that they have to start saying, whoa, you can't come anymore. No, we messed up. Sorry. And now they're in these cages. Now they're in these detention centers. Now they're in these overflow facilities, whatever you want to call it. It's a failed policy. If you put out the notice, you are not going to be allowed in. We're building a wall. You're not going to be allowed in unless you've done the proper steps, went through this proper, protocol, filled out the paperwork, and are going through the channel that we have set, the immigration and refugee and asylum seeker, all of those people. There is a path to do that under a Trump administration, a Reagan administration. There is the proper channels. And that's what kept people from flooding the border and saying, okay, we got to waste our time, go down there, and we're not going to get in. They knew they weren't going to, so they didn't go. There wasn't that border crisis. But now they're being spoon-fed this false narrative that everybody's allowed in. You're allowed in, no questions asked. Grab a kid, come on down. And if you have a kid, you have a greater chance of getting in. So people are grabbing everybody's kids. There's a border crisis. There's a human problem, right? We have these people whose lives are in limbo. And we have people in Washington like Joe Biden and Harris who are not admitting that their policy isn't working. They're not saying there's a crisis. They're not saying we got to change what we're doing because this can't go on any longer. We can't even facilitate them. Right now, we're putting them in hotels and paying for it. We're not. They're just not testing these people for COVID. It's a global pandemic. It's not safe for them to be down there in those mass numbers. It's just a complete failure all the way across the board. And why? Because their policy is weak. There's a lot of issues right now. You can't just write 60 executive orders and say, I'm going to be the guy that makes all the changes. I'm going to come in, we are no longer going to use gas and oil. We're stopping the production of that. We're stopping the Keystone pipeline. We are going to stop this. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop the border wall. We're going to stop everything. All these things that had people working, and Trump was, had the lowest unemployment in history. We're going to change all these things because we're going to be remembered as the environmentally friendly administration. But then put nothing into place to help these workers that are no longer working. So thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people are out of work. So some people might say, yeah, but you have to take small steps to gain great big steps in environmental. And I get that. I get it. But what are you doing right now with all of your policies? So he's not admitting there's a genocide going on in China. So just ignore that. We're not going to say that because we make money with China. So by coming out and saying China bad, it's not going to be good for him. Because then China's going to be mad at him, and then China's not going to want to give him money. Then you have just failure after failure across the board. But what's really the big picture, what the real huge failure is how are you going to afford this, Joe Biden? You're going to forgive $1.9 trillion in student debt. You're going to cancel thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs, put all of those people on unemployment and no hope of a job in the future. That becomes, you only get unemployment for so long. So when unemployment runs out, now your unemployment number will be bragged about by CNN and MSNBC because they did this with Barack Obama as well. But when you take the hope of a job away from people and their unemployment runs out and you don't offer them job creation, they become no longer part of the working force. They are on welfare, food stamps, social assistance, and that number goes through the roof. MSNBC, CNN, all of those different news outlets, they will not report the truth on that. They just won't, because they hid that from Obama, from the people when Obama was in power, and the same policies were failing the people then. So people on food stamps goes up, unemployment goes down because there's no hope of a job and you haven't had one for at least a year. So that's what's going to be happening again, is a year from now, all the people that have lost their jobs due to Joe Biden's administration coming in and just yanking the carpet out from underneath them, having no job and no future, even though he promised them a future, even though he said, "Oh yeah, all these people that are working in the oil fields, oh wow, well, we're gonna put all this green energy together, and these people will work in that field." No, that they won't be able to. So they might have to go to school and then apply, but you know, are you gonna? How many people can afford to go back to school, and are you going to pay for everybody to go back to school? Because then that becomes another cost, right? Right now they're on unemployment, and then they're going to be on welfare and food stamps, and then they're going to go back to school, and then they're going to apply for probably minimum wage jobs, which has gone up. So minimum wage is now costing more for the government. Everything is just the debt of the country is just going up and up and up. We're going to forgive 1.9 trillion in student debt, more debt for the government. We're going to, put out a 1.9 trillion stimulus package, and the package is ridiculous. I don't know how these Democrats sitting in the House and the Senate are coming up with where they're spending their money, but if they would focus on giving the money to the American people, that would be probably a great start, because it's their money to begin with. It does come from taxes. It will be taxes that pays it eventually off. I don't know how many hundreds of years from now that'll happen, but this administration is going to absolutely cripple the economy in the United States. It's going to put the debt at a level unknown from any past administration. This is absolutely absurd that the policies are such a huge failure already. And it's what, we're 3 months in? We're a couple of months in. It was January 20th, and now it's the 23rd of March. And we're already seeing a crisis at the border. We're already seeing a large number of really angry workers that have all been promised jobs but have no jobs. We're seeing the gun control, that's starting to make its way through the House and the Senate. It's starting to be an issue with the NRA, and some people are okay with that. Some people are okay with gun rights coming in and everybody stealing your Second Amendment. It isn't okay when it's a something that's written into law, right? It's not the NRA that are out shooting superstores or grocery stores or anything. These are people that have been deemed not to be able to get guns, and they are getting guns. And where are they getting guns? Well, they're getting guns from gangs and all these people that are selling them illegally. They're not going to the store and filling out paperwork and saying, "Yeah, I'm a criminal," and filling it out, handing it over, and saying, "Oh, you have quite the storied past here. Lots of arrests. Here's your gun. See you later." No, they're not buying them there. I don't care what anyone says. That's not where you're getting your gun, because you know what? They wouldn't get it. They wouldn't get the gun. So where are they getting the gun? They're getting the gun from people that are crossing the border illegally and just in mass, right? We're talking about gangs and everything else. These are the people making money all kinds of illicit ways. Well, guess what? That's not going to stop unless you have a border wall and some control on your southern border, and then you can start controlling things inside your country once you've controlled your border. A country without border control has no hope of controlling what goes on within it if you're not monitoring the elements that are coming into the country. So this is just the beginning of the administration for Joe Biden and Harris. We're seeing Biden's not taking questions because he's really having a hard time with answering questions, but he has no answer. That's why he's not doing it. The biggest problem is not that he's completely cognitively sound, but he's slipping, but he's older. You know, if he's in his late 70s and he's the president, he's still working, right? He's, in my opinion, terrible at his job, but he's still trying. He still wants to do stuff for his country, and he's it's not that he's completely cognitively unsound. He's not as bad as what the media, the right-wing media, is trying to make him out to be. He is bad, don't get me wrong. He's nowhere near what he used to be. But he is the same guy that Robin Williams made fun of, saying that he's like your crazy uncle that doesn't have his, he's on a new medication and he hasn't got the dosage right. He says things like that, just make you shake your head. But here's the thing. They have no answers. I feel bad for Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary. She tries every day. Everybody's making fun of her for saying circle back. Well, I'll circle back. She has no answer. There is no answer for failure. If it's failed and it's been proven to fail and it's been showcased as a failure and it's going to continue to be a failure, and you're not changing the way it's being dealt with, and you're not doing anything positive, there's no answer for that. So that's why she says, I will circle back. I will circle back. Not anytime soon, because there is no answer for that. We know it's a failure. We will not admit it's a failure, and we are not going to answer that question because we have no answer for it. And that's what's going on in the United States right now. Right now, the biggest problem is the administration and their policies. They're terrible and they don't work. They're not actually, they tried to say they were for all these groups, right? They wanted to be, we are for Black Lives Matter. Well, Black Lives Matter took in all kinds of money during the campaign, and it all went to the Democrat National Committee, and now they won't even sit and meet with the Black Lives Matter. That they just used them for their money and for the potential votes and everything else, and for the virtue signaling and all that. And now, poof, we don't need them anymore. 4 more years, we'll be back. And then you're seeing all of these failures. They think we're taking care of the people. No, you're not. There's a humongous problem on your southern border. And none of those people should have been fed this narrative that they were going to have a cakewalk into the United States, become citizens, get a driver's license, be able to vote, and live the American dream. What they're living right now is the Democrat nightmare on failed policy. Then you have all of these workers that were being told, you're going to have jobs as I transition into this green energy. Well, there's no talk of the green energy. There's no talk of where they're going to get this oil. There's no talk of any of that. Where are you going to get, if you're not actually using the Keystone pipeline, and you're not going to use fracking, and you're not going to try and get your own resources out of your own country, out of your own ground, and get it to a refinery and get it to the pumps and get it into cars and get it into houses, and well, then what are you going to do? Because your supply is going to run out. The prices for gas and everything else, the energy prices have gone skyrocketing, because now if you're not going to bring in more, if you're not going to increase the supply, well, there's a limited number, right? So yeah, you can crank up the price because now there's a demand for it. Maybe that was the intention. Maybe he's going to go back eventually and start it back up, and then the demand will be there, and then the price will be higher. I have no idea. I have no idea what he's thinking, because right now it's not working. People are paying ridiculous amounts at the gas pumps. People are heating their homes. Thank goodness we're moving into warmer weather instead of colder weather. But this is only, like I said, he took office on what, January 20th, something like that. It's March 25th, and we're in crisis mode, energy and border. And it's just, but what's really sad is that the world is looking at Joe Biden right now, and they're wondering, how able is this man to do his job? He made a comment about Vladimir Putin about being a murderer. He was making these negative comments about Vladimir Putin, and Putin was, I'd like to debate him on that. I'd love to talk to him about that. But you know what? We're going to do that live so that everybody in the world can see just what Joe Biden is capable of in a debate. Do you think he would do that? Do you think that Putin would enter into a debate on what, like, and think about all the things that Putin has done, right? How is he going to defend some of those things? He probably can't, and he probably won't. And he's still willing to go live on air and debate Joe Biden on being called a murderer, on being called a killer, on being called negative things. He's willing to go on national TV and debate Joe Biden on that, because he knows that he's going to go into this debate with the upper hand. He's going to trip Biden up, make Biden look weak, make him look terrible. He's going to embarrass him. He's going to make him look foolish. Putin's going to walk all over him. And he knows it. And that's why he's willing to put his record on the line. Just go there and say, well, yeah, I've done some pretty bad things, but I'm willing to debate that with Joe Biden, because I'm pretty sure that I don't have to really worry about it. And that's what the world is thinking right now. If Vladimir Putin is doing that, and if that's going through his head, you know that it's got to be going through all of the other, maybe not so upstanding leaders around the world. The Iranian leaders, the North Korean leaders, all the other ISIS leaders and these terrorists groups and stuff like that. They have to be wondering the same thing Putin is. Is this guy capable of doing his job? Is he weak? His policies are weak. His policies are failures. They're already seeing, my gosh, like I said already a couple of times, January 20th to March 25th, and it's already in crisis mode. It's a failure. It's a flop. All the things he said he was going to do, he can't. We're going to end this pandemic. We're going to end it. And he gets in office, and then within 3 weeks of being in office, what's he say? Oh yeah, but can't change the trajectory of this thing. No, this thing's in there. You just got done telling everybody in an election that you were going to end it. Like how did you go from we're going to end it? Why isn't Trump doing something about this? He's got to end this. He's a failure. And now it's, but this is the same administration, like Pelosi and all of them, saying that the border crisis is Trump's fault. This is all Trump's fault. And this will be the pattern for the next 4 years under the Obama 2.0 maybe, under the Biden-Harris administration. All of the failures will be Trump's fault. And the media will be there to cement that and hammer that home to everybody out there viewing. Hey, remember, all these failures, they didn't just happen. It's Trump's fault. Trump made it. I made a joke the other day when Biden fell on the stairs leading up to the Air Force One. I said, I'm really surprised that the Democrats haven't come out and said that Trump damaged the stairs somehow, and that the impeachment has been put into the process in the House, and the proceedings will be starting any day because something Trump must have done to those stairs will have to be impeached. Now, Nancy Pelosi once called Trump morbidly obese. The insults, the attacks on him were relentless. And we're not seeing anybody even be allowed to talk about the 2020 election. We're not seeing anybody being able to talk about, the failures already. They're you kind of get attacked by the left when you bring up these things. And then and my wife was attacked on Facebook, not attacked, but a negative comment because she put out a concern for Joe Biden's health. And someone said, "Oh, yeah. Well, maybe you should attack his character." That could be done too. But here's the deal. You can't attack everybody just because you're on the left and they're using facts. He fell. There is a concern. Whether it's whether it's a cognitive concern, whether it's a physical concern. People were concerned for Hillary when Hillary showed signs of real fatigue during the 2016 election, right? People were concerned. She fell down, she fainted, they were trying to get her into the car. She looked like she had gone through something because when she saw the balloons and every time she was, surprised by someone fairly loud behind her and she made all these gestures and, there were people saying, hey, these are real concerns. So we're losing the ability to show concern for the people on the left. And when the people supporting of the left see that there is an issue, they go on the attack and attack the people on the right personally, even just to silence these failed policies or failed, cognitive decline or all that stuff. And we can't have that. That's that cancel culture coming in. That cancel culture is going to be the demon that steals your soul if you allow it. You can't allow that. It has to be eradicated. It is just insane what the media is getting away with. It is insane the failures, and you can't talk about them. You can't talk about certain things from elections. You can't talk about, even if there's proof, you can't mention it because it's something in a negative light that is supporting, if someone on the left is supporting it, then, well, they're going to cancel you for it. And it's insane. And the best is they're saying that, oh, you cannot mention these things because, it's offensive. What's offensive is things like Cardi B singing a song, Wet Ass, and I'm not going to say the rest, and then not even just, that's the song of the year. But that video is offensive. Those lyrics are offensive, and children are allowed to see them on certain platforms. And even in the Grammys. Now, everybody should be able to tune into the Grammys. When the Grammys are on, everybody in the family should be able to sit down and enjoy that. There should be something a family sits down together and watches. Could you imagine small children watching the Grammys, this year's Grammys, with Cardi B performing that song and the show that she put on, and that there was a stripper, like there was a strip show involved, the lyrics, I could not imagine. I could not even remotely imagine what children are thinking, what parents are thinking that allowed children to watch that, what the network is thinking to put that on, what Cardi B could be thinking to perform, like maybe I shouldn't perform this song, but it's a number one song. So why would she not perform it? I don't know where we've gone on the decency frontier, but we're lost. If we're out there exploring the frontier of new music and everything else, we're lost. Because, like, if that's the number one song of the year, oh, um, man. And I had a friend of mine once, kind of bring up the fact that the Beatles were kind of crazy on some of their stuff, right? They just wanted to put it out there and see where it would go. And that's why they wrote Yellow Submarine. And they it was just a crazy song, and they wanted to see if it would sell, and if it did, great, and then, ha ha ha, and the people that bought a song called Yellow Submarine, we all live, and so, but there's a problem here. The Yellow Submarine, if you were 6 or if you were 600, you could watch the video, you could listen to the song, you could read the lyrics, and you weren't offended, and you weren't shocked, and you weren't embarrassed. You read the lyrics of WAP, yeah, you're gonna blush yourself, let alone try reading them to your mom. It's terrible. It's not art. It's not art. So, anyways, we're failing on a lot of things right now, and we're gonna follow them along right here on the Blue North. So, hopefully, I don't have more videos that are taken down. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep continuing to get my opinion out there. Like I said, I'm not a news source. I follow the news. I like to talk about what's going on in the news. I try to hit on the real thing. I try to back up what I'm saying with actual numbers and research and everything else. I don't just come out here and say, like, there's nothing going on the southern border, no crisis here, don't look. Well, sorry, there is. Anyway, hopefully I don't have more videos taken down. Hit that subscribe button, follow along, and yeah, you might have to check in daily to see if my videos are still there. So stay tuned.